Welcome to the Pretty Powerful Podcast, where powerful women are interviewed every week to share real inspiring stories and incredible insight to help women or anyone break the barriers, be a part of innovation, shatter the glass ceiling, and dominate to the top of their sport, industry, or life's mission. Join us as we celebrate exceptional women and step into our power. And now, here's your host, Angela Gennari.
Hello, and thank you for joining us for another episode of the Pretty Powerful Podcast. My name is Angela Gennari, and I am here with my great friend, Tashia Stafford.
Hi, Angela. Thank you so much for having me. This is an honor. I felt really honored when you was like, I want you on my podcast. I was like, really? I'd love to do your podcast. So thank you.
Well, you are
I love the name.
Oh, thank you.
I've always loved the name.
Yeah,
like Pretty Powerful is great. So I wanted to make sure that I mentioned that. I don't know if you put some real thought into that.
I went round and round, and I reached out to every woman I know, and I was like, would Pretty Powerful sound offensive or empowering? And so, we talked about like the fierce female, we talked about all these other things, and really it came down to Pretty Powerful because, I feel like women can be pretty, they can be powerful,
right.
They can be the same thing, and one doesn't negate the other.
Right.
And so the more supportive we are in all of the things that make us who we are as women,
right.
Are what lead to our great complexity.
Yeah.
And also what I love about it is that it doesn't tell people that this is a woman's only podcast, because I have a pretty significant male audience that I love, and I get such incredible feedback from them because they're learning from the women who are on the podcast, which is what I want more than anything in the world, right? Yeah. Like that was the whole premise, was let's put women on a pedestal and talk about how intelligent and resourceful and amazing they are, and they can share their expertise and their
story, basically.
Yeah, their point of view, their story, and it just kind of helps to educate everybody, not just on business, not just on what it means to be a female in the work world and going through your journey, but it just helps to inspire and empower people. Yeah. And so I appreciate that very much. So I want to introduce Tashia because y'all don't know this, but she is a very powerful and influential figure, and I am very, very blessed to know her and consider her a friend. So Tashia was born and raised in California and moved to Atlanta, where she attended and graduated from Georgia State University with a BA in film and music business, and that is Tashia 1.0, which we're going to talk about later. Yes. So starting out as an intern at Sony Music in the A&R department, which by the way is huge, right? Yeah. Tashia quickly established a reputation for keeping things organized and having strong administrative skills. After college, Tashia caught the attention of the A&R director for Electro Records, who immediately hired her to join their A&R team in Atlanta. Huge booming market in the music industry.
It was a prime time for that to happen, so that was a blessing.
Yes. So after a few years, Tashia ventured out and began her own management and administrative company called Enlight Entertainment Services, Inc. Am I saying that right?
Yes.
Okay. And her first clients were two former producers for Sean Diddy Combs, with whom she worked behind the scenes on such projects as Faith Evans, Kelly Price, Destiny's Child, 112, and many others. So she has this impressive resume, and I could keep going on and on and on, but I'm just going to throw some names out here that you'll recognize. People like Michael Jackson, TLC, Pink, Whitney Houston, Usher,
Justin.
Scooter Braun, Chris Brown. So I mean, just impressive. You've worked with so many names, and you've got yourself on the you're on the record label of a lot of these different as one of the contributors.
Correct.
So I mean, that's huge. But now Tashia has her next big adventure, which is opening doors to her own mega studio complex, Icon, which is where we are right now, and where actually my podcast was born. So it is Stone, her incredible husband, who gave me the confidence to come in and launch the podcast. When I said this was not something I think I could do.
85 episodes in.
I know, and I'm 85 episodes
God.
in, but Stone was the one that looked at me and said, we got the technical stuff, you just show up and talk. And I was like, wait, really? And he's like, I got you. And so, you know, Stone kind of made this happen. So I attribute, you know, a lot of the success that we've experienced to Stone, to the studio, to what the two of you have built together.
Yes.
So, and then you also shifted into a more conscious awareness space, launching a new app and a website called Charmed Visions.
Yes.
So I have these Charmed Visions things on now. So they're bracelets, and they basically allow you to kind of focus on your intentions. It's law of attraction. It's, you know,
wearable vision boards.
Exactly. Wearable vision boards.
Like,
so brilliant.
If you just want a photo bracelet of your cats and dogs and
Right.
grandkids and babies, that works too.
Yes.
Like the goal of Charm Visions was to wear what makes you happy.
Yes.
Wear what motivates you.
Yeah.
Wear something that's going to inspire you throughout the day to accomplish your goals. And that could be your family. Your family could be your motivation to accomplish your goals. So the whole premise of Charm Visions was to take your vision with you. Like everybody should have a vision for their life, because the Bible says, you know, without vision, my people perish. So it's like, what are people lacking? And it was vision. So we'll get into that.
And what I love about that is it is so beautifully wraps up who you are as a person, and you've overcome so much, and you have done so much in your life, and you've lived a very enviable life in some respects, and you've gone through a lot of challenges that have also helped you. And so putting this all together and and brought it all full circle into the point where now you are inspiring others to, you know, bring in what they are passionate about, you know, attract it into your life and live the life that you're destined to live.
That's what I'm here for. I'm here to help people manifest their dreams. I'm here to help people, you know, reach their goals. I'm here to help people have a vision for their life, because what I have found is that people do not have a vision for their life. And
they don't.
I'm like, how do you not have a vision? Like I was driven by a vision. So it's really, you know, tough to hear that people don't have vision. So I want to help people in that regard. Have vision
and I mean,
life.
you've been helping people from the start. I mean, when you were in music, you know,
pretty much that was what I was
you were
doing.
helping people recognize their dream.
Yeah, that is
right.
exactly
And so
right.
you were bringing their dreams to life, and now you're helping them recognize what those dreams are and helping them as well.
Correct.
So I love that. So let's start by asking what made you want to get into the music industry?
So I tripped into the music industry. I tripped and fell. So it all started when I was in Colorado. I joined a singing group. Just one of my friends, we were modeling together, and she was like, hey, you know, I'm in this singing group and they need another member. And I was like, okay, you know, I'm 19. I was like, yeah, you know, I can do it. I couldn't sing. I was just like, I'll do it. So I joined the group, and I ended up being the lead singer that couldn't sing, you know. So the group went nowhere. You know what I mean? We failed, and because we didn't know, we were out when In Vogue were out. Remember when In Vogue came out? So they were coming out, and we were a 4-girl group as well. So, so that we failed in that. So I ended up moving to Georgia. And going to Georgia State, and I didn't have any intention on being in the music industry. I just, you know, I was enrolled late, and I had to pick some electives, and there were only 2 available, and they were promotions and recorded music and introduction to the music industry. So I just picked them. Yeah. And the first day, my teacher was like, is anybody interested in an internship? And I just raised my hand. I was like, sure, I'll take an internship.
Meanwhile, it's with what, Sony?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
But I didn't get the job when I went and interviewed. So I went, I had my dress on, because I was working in a corporate environment. It was called CH2M Hill. It was an engineering firm, you know, mechanical engineer. So I had to dress the part, you know. So when I went in for the interview, I put my suit on and I looked all business and I looked all professional. And so I went in there, and my boss, I remember her name was Marnie Smith, and she was in the rock and roll department. Oh, okay. And she had on this t-shirt and ripped up jeans and some kind of shoes, and she looked at me. She was like, did you know where you were coming today? And I was
Did you read the room?
Yeah. I was like, I'm here for the interview. And she was like, what's your school's radio station? I was like, I don't know. And she told it to me. She was like, you know what? She was like, I don't think this is for you. I don't really think you're going to be a good fit. And I was like, give me a chance. I was like, please let me come back. I was like, just give me one more chance. So she was like, okay. So I, you know, went home and changed my clothes and did my little research. And, you know, she let me come back the next week, and she ended up hiring me, and she loved me, of course. Like, I came in, and I'm the type of person that when I see something that needs to be fixed or can be organized better, then I just take over that. Yeah. I was actually just downstairs with Mace, you know, looking at his room, and I'm like, oh my God, like, we need to fix this room. Like, what's going on in here? And he was like, you can help me? I was like, yes, I'm going to help you. So anyway, so the job was A&R, which is finding talent. So people were sending demos, and they were just demos everywhere. And a lot of people never got a response. So I was like, how about we put a little system together? Like, we can make some pre-made like postcards so that when they come in, we can at least acknowledge that. Yeah. Because these are people's dreams.
I know, exactly.
Like, you know, even if it's terrible, I don't want to crush their dreams.
Well, and you know, they're putting it out there, and this is what they've worked so hard for, and like to not acknowledge their blood, sweat, tears. You know, their dreams are on the table literally in front of you. And you're like, whatever.
Exactly. And so I created that, and so at least everybody would get a response to their demo saying, we received it, we'll let you know. We'll, you know, we may not have ever contacted them from that point, but at least they got an acknowledgement, which was more than they were getting before I got there. So she eventually referred me to the R&B department, because I really wasn't a rock and roll person. That wasn't really what I was. And they had recently hired a urban R&B A&R. So I shifted and became the A&R the A&R intern for that department, and did that until I graduated. And I was working full time, going to school and interning. Like, there were days where I was in my office, because I was like the receptionist, you know, and I would be doing my homework, and sometimes I would be sleeping under my desk at the office, because I was like so tired, and I didn't want to drive all the way home. And so I before I graduated, so I strategized. So before I graduated college, I didn't have a job. I knew I didn't have a job, but and Sony wasn't in a position to hire me. So I said, what can I do to introduce my skills to the industry? And I thought of this before, like 6-7 months before I graduated. So I was like, what if I do a big showcase, you know, and put it on, organize it. And my job was going to showcases, and they sucked. I hated it. They were always, everybody was late. The talent was terrible. It was hot. It was just a lot. So, but that was my job. I had to go. So I was like, and it wasn't a pleasant experience. So I was like, I'm going to put on the best showcase this industry has ever seen. So I got sponsors. I got ASCAP to sponsor, which is a big, you know, performance rights society. I got them. I got EMI to sponsor. I got a rehearsal studio to sponsor. But this was me hitting the ground, going door to door, if you will. Like, I had a whole proposal that I drew up, and I said, I didn't have any money. I started, that's the other part of me. I started all of these businesses with $0. Good. You know what I mean? So I just had to use
that's tenacity.
I just had to use what I had to get things done. So I got all of that figured out. Put on the showcase. It was amazing. I had it catered for VIPs, and it started exactly on time. I actually had 2 major artists featured, a Sony artist and a Columbia artist. There was a group called Mista at the time. They sung that song Blackberry Molasses. Do you remember that song? So I had them, you know, as a special guest, and then I had another young lady that was signed. I don't know. Anyway, so I had 2 signed artists, and then I had 10 acts, but I rehearsed them. Like, I didn't just pick people, and I wanted the talent to be really amazing. I wanted the talent to be really good. So I auditioned and I rehearsed them so they'd be prepared, you know, for the showcase. And it went off without a hitch, and the A&R for Electra happened to be there. And he was like, who put this on? This is great. You know, and he was looking for an assistant at the time. So he found out who put it on, and then I interviewed for that, and I got that job. So that was my introduction into the music industry. That's how I landed in the music industry. So I have never once picked up a camera to do film and video, even though that's what my degree is in. I've never filmed anything. So I find that pretty funny that, you know, that's what my degree is in, but I've never really used it. But school was amazing. School was
Yeah.
important because there was some real foundational things, you know, that school taught me, and I would never regret it, and I would never tell people not to, you know, finish college. It was very beneficial for me, and it was very helpful. You know, just having a degree was helpful. Not necessarily that I used it, but just the fact that I had it was opened some doors for me.
Absolutely. Well, and you know, they see film and music on your resume, you know, even it's just your major. I mean, with mine, I studied criminal psychology, and I almost never interact with serial killers these days, but you know, at the same time, it's a degree.
Well,
that
at least you'll know if you encounter one.
If I encounter one, I'm a pretty good read of a character now.
Like, you strike me as a serial killer.
I'm pretty sure you have people in your basement. I don't think we should continue talking. I've been on dates where I've considered that. I'm like, I wonder how long it would take for him to bind my arms and my legs together, and could I escape before that happened? So so that definitely, yes.
So you can relate to having a degree and not using it. So that was that. So that was my first medical challenge. So I met Stone in college, and he was very instrumental in help. He was there through the whole showcase thing, and he was just very instrumental in helping me. I tell people all the time that I dated, and it was disastrous, actually. You know, but,
I understand.
But it was disastrous because of the selection, you know, that I was choosing. You know what I mean?
Right.
And, you know, none of those people I ever considered marriage material. They were just people that I was dating, but it was a spectrum. You know what I mean?
So were they from the music industry?
I never dated anybody. He was in the music industry, but so I guess him. You know what I mean? So I dated him, but I didn't date anybody else because I didn't want that stigma. I didn't want to be known as the girl that got around, you know, in the industry. So
moved up through, exactly.
Right. And there was plenty of opportunity for me to be that person.
Sure.
But that just wasn't who I was. So I, in fact, you know, when I was dating him, I got hit with something in my body that, you know, caused my skin to just be really scaly and flaky, and like my feet were just horrific. Like what happened was I was in an apartment complex, and the water was bad, and there was a whole lawsuit about it, but I was young. I didn't really I was just like trying to worry about, you know, getting better. But anyway, you know, he was very attentive, and you know, I saw how he showed up for me in that particular area. Like, I wouldn't have done that for him. Like, if his feet were looking like that, I'd have been like, no.
Be like, put your socks back on. Don't you take this off again.
Exactly. But he was rubbing ointment on him, and just really, and I was like, he's really cool. Like, this is a really cool guy. And then, you know, along the way, he was, like I said, he was rallying around my causes, helping me with the showcase, helping me with my homework. He even helped me, you know, graduate, like helping me do papers and stuff like that. And so I tell people all the time that I pretty much asked him to marry me. Like we were in my bedroom, and I have this whole plan for my life, and I'm like, I want to do this, I want to do that. And I was like, when are we going to get married? Because I
need this on my to-do list, because I see that there's like 7 things, and you know, there's a gap in time where I've got like 30 minutes on the 14th. Could we just go ahead and wrap it up? And
Pretty much. We went to the courthouse and got married. You know what I mean? It. Like, so it was a whole, he always laughs and says I was on her to-do list. I was just on her to-do list. And unfortunately, you know, it kind of ended up being that. And I didn't know what I know now, but what I wasn't the best wife. You know, I was so focused on my career and so narrow-minded on building and being successful, because that's kind of how I was just programmed, you know, to succeed. And I needed, you know, to climb, you know, the ladder. But what ended up happening, that was like my first thing. And because with every thing in my career, something medical always hit me, and I had to, there's going to be a correlation that comes back around. So that was my first, you know, I got into the business, that happened, and that was fine. So moving on, my boss, I worked for Electra for about a year. My boss got fired for something that he did. I didn't do anything. I was great at my job, you know, but I ended up losing my job because of something he did.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, I don't like that feeling.
Was it a scapegoat situation?
No, it was just, he was my boss.
Yeah.
So when they fired him, they were like, well, he's gonna go, you gotta go.
Oh,
you know what I mean? And so I was like, and that's kind of how the musical industry chairs worked. It's like usually if a new camp comes in, they get rid of the old camp and the new boss brings their own people in.
I gotcha.
And so I was like, I don't want that. So it's like, I think I want to start my own business. And so by then I had already started making connections and meeting people. And so
where did that drive come from? Because that's a lot. That's a lot. You're talking about like climbing and doing. Where does that come from? Was it your parents?
Nope. I didn't have any of. I think my dad had an entrepreneurial gene, but he could never. He had a lot of ideas, but he never followed through. He was too busy cheating on my mom and having affairs and having babies out of wedlock. So he was too busy doing that to pursue his dreams and goals. He would start them, but
he had dreams and goals. They just weren't career related.
Right. Exactly. But dialing back, my dad had a bunch of childhood traumas, and it all stemmed from that. So I had to forgive him and all this stuff. But so I think I got my drive from there. But when I moved so we were in LA, my mom was going through all that with my dad, and she kept going back to him. So she was like, the only way I can not go back to him is leave the state.
Wow.
And so she packed us up and moved us to Colorado. Okay. And that's where I went to high school in Colorado.
Yeah.
And somewhere along that journey, there was something called the Urban League. Okay. And they put on a little seminar. And I was very I thought I was fashionable, but I wasn't.
You're
really
still fashionable.
Well, thank you. But I was that girl in high school. My friends, they'll tell me now, they'll be like, yeah, you used to think you were matching, but your pinks would be different, but you couldn't tell me anything. I had shoestrings for headbands, and so I literally thought, I'm from LA, I'm very fashionable. You know what I mean? I get my clothes from the swap meet, you know what I mean? So
I love it.
So they had a lady who had her own boutique, her own store, and she was the special guest, and so that fascinated me. And she said entrepreneurship. I couldn't even spell it. I couldn't pronounce it, but that's what she was. And I was like, I want to be that. I want to own my own business. I want to be my own boss. And like, she gets to go in a store with clothes every day, so that was my first concept of entrepreneurship. And that just stuck with me. And so once I got older, that seed had been planted. So when an opportunity did present itself. So even though my boss got fired, we were still close. And to this day, 30 years later, we're still close. I consider him, like family at this point, even though he, did what he did to get fired. But anyway, somebody called him from Sony Music. They had just signed a kid. His name was J-Dub. He was just turning 19, and they were like, we just gave this kid $1 million.
Wow.
Do you have anybody that could help administrate him? He's signed to Puffy. He's one of the bad boy hitmen. So we just really want somebody with him. And he was like, well, I have the perfect person. My former assistant, she could do that. So I had to meet with his mom, not my former boss, but the kid, that got signed. So I had to meet his mom and pass the mom test. She was a detective, on the police department. So she was very much, like, are you going to take advantage of my son? And she, of course, wanted to make sure I wasn't trying to date her son.
Right. He got $1 million now.
Right. So I was like, none of
those gold diggers away.
Yeah. So we clicked immediately. She ended up loving me. We're still friends to this day.
Awesome.
I call her Mama Kay. So I got him as a client, and I began doing administrative behind the scenes stuff. But I was his personal assistant. I was his personal admin, everything. Like, I was just everything to that boy. Like, and so one of the other hitmen was like, "Oh, can she do me too? Like, I need that." And so I was like, "Sure," you know what I mean. So I got two. But at that time, we were in a 1-bedroom loft. And so that's where I used a little corner in our bedroom as my little tiny office, with those two clients. And then I was like, hey, we need to move because, you know, I got 2 clients now. Maybe we should get a 2-bedroom and I could use the second bedroom as my office. So we moved into the same apartment complex into a 2-bedroom. And so then another person came and was like, oh, can you do me too? And it just started growing and growing. And then I was like, babe, we need a house, you know, now. Like I got another client, you know what I mean? So my 3rd client, again, the same boss, you know, this time I told him, I was like, I targeted this client. His name was Shakespeare. And he had just produced TLC's No Scrubs. And I was like, I would really like to get him, you know, and so he made the introduction. And so, you know, I got him as a client. And so he was really doing big things, you know, at that time. So, you know, he actually helped us get the house. Like my client, I asked. And this is the thing about me. You don't get anywhere unless you ask. I'm the type of person, I ask. Yes. I ask people for what I want. I'm not scared to ask because all they can say is no. So I asked him, I was like, hey, we need $10,000 for this house, you know, down payment, you know, can I? And he was like, sure. You know, he was getting checks left and right. He just gave us the money, you know. So we got our house and then I turned my garage into the office. So I had an assistant. I hired an assistant because I had 3 guys at that point. And we were, you know, they were all working and it's like crazy stuff. You know what I mean? They're having babies, they're missing flights, you know, losing phones and, you know, like needing limos and all of this stuff. You know what I mean? And so I had 3 of these guys that all needed this kind of attention. Like, help me buy a house. I need a car. You know what I mean? It's midnight and I missed my flight. Can you help me book another flight? You know what I mean? So my phone's ringing like all 24/7, you know, with all their personal issues, but I loved it. Like I thrived on that. But needless to say, in between that, I did have a husband. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You're like, oh yeah, the other guy. I'm out here handling these 3 guys, all their affairs and their needs, and meanwhile my poor husband's over there. He's like, can I just get breakfast? Like, can I just?
And he couldn't. Like, I wasn't cooking, I wasn't cleaning, I wasn't doing any of that.
I was just can you grocery shop today? Or
I was just so focused on
tell me that I look nice today.
Building my business and building the brand. Which, you know, again, in retrospect, that probably wasn't the best move, you know, because I wasn't focusing on what mattered. You know, I was focusing on money. To be honest, that's really what was my driving force. I wanted to make more money. I wanted
build
more
something.
money. Yeah, I wanted to, you know, buy a bigger house. I wanted to put a pool in. I wanted stuff. Yeah. You know what I mean? I can admit that now, but back then I was, you know, no, I'm just, you know, I'm gonna build a business and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. But I was motivated, you know, by money, you know, trying to get as much money as I can. So we did the house, we did the garage, and you know, it got bigger, you know, at that point. And so I ended up having to get an office, and we ended up being in Sony's office. Because it was a person that I knew. He just opened up a Sony office. He was going to be the face or the head of Sony at that time. And they had a whole building and they were leasing space out. So I leased one of the office spaces in there. And so me and my assistant, I ended up having 2 assistants at that point. So I had a whole administrative assistant business, which is fine because I was people's assistant, you know, like for all intent and purposes. I was a CEO of my own company, but my position,
your service
was an assistant. I literally had to be humbled in all of that because I still was helping people do menial tasks, you know what I mean? And we're running around to studios and getting split sheets signed and, you know, just doing all that grungy work. And sometimes I'd have to travel with them, you know, and go to those were really, you know, great days. But somewhere along the way of that, like when I started Inlight, Bell's palsy hit me. I don't know if you know what that is. That's when one side of your face goes paralyzed. Wow. And so I, you know, had to push, you know, through that, you know, and that was embarrassing because.
So do you know what causes that?
Stress.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. So you're just working yourself, and eventually caught up and wow.
So that happened. So I I had to work through that challenge, and that went away. Thank God I didn't get stuck. But there's still, like, one eye is still a little lower than the other. If like in pictures, I can see it. I can be like, oh, my eye is drooping. I'm like, man, why did you tell me? He's like, I didn't see. I can't see.
It looks fine to me. I don't see no droopy eye.
But that happened. And so I had to get through all that. And then there was a period where I couldn't breathe through my nose. Like my turbinates kind of swelled up, and I literally couldn't breathe through my nose. I had to, like, if somebody held my mouth, I'd die because I couldn't breathe through my nose. So I ended up having a surgery, to get that fixed. And so all of these I'm working through. And then in 2009, me and my husband, we were on a vacation, and I was walking and I was looking down and to the right, and I was getting dizzy, and I was like, something's not right. I was like, I know myself, and I'm not feeling right, so I'm gonna go get an MRI. I initiated that myself. Like, I didn't wait. I was like, I'm gonna get an MRI because something's not right. Yeah. So I got the MRI, and they were like, unfortunately, we hate to tell you this, but you have MS. And I was like, am I a Jerry's kid? What is MS? You know what I mean? Like, I didn't even know what MS was. Yeah. Like, I thought it was muscular dystrophy. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so I'm thinking I got that. And they were like, no, it's multiple sclerosis. And I was like, what is that? And they were like, well, it's when you have lesions on your brain, and a lot of people end up paralyzed in a wheelchair. And I'm like, that's not about to be my life. You know what I mean? Because I didn't have, the only symptom I had was just that mild little, so I didn't know. I was like,
did it feel like vertigo? Is that what it felt like?
It felt like vertigo, the start of vertigo.
Okay. All right.
And so they offered to put me on a drug called Avonex, and the side effect was having cold and flu-like symptoms every weekend, like 3 days a week. And so they were like, so we advise you it's 3 shots a week. So do 1 shot a week. So they was like, do Friday, so that Saturday and Sunday you're gonna be down like with the flu, and you could be good to go to work Monday through Friday. I was like, I don't want to have every weekend of my life a cold and flu, you know. So I was like, I'm not doing that. So I was pretty much in denial at that point. I was very much like, God will heal me, by His stripes I'm healed, and I'm like, God's got this, you know what I mean? So I was like, I'm not taking that. And so a year goes by, and I literally forget I even have MS. Yeah. I'm just like living my best life.
Are you still experiencing the symptoms?
Mildly. Okay. Just, now that it's not like when you know what it is, I'm just like, okay. So
now you look for it and you recognize it.
But it wasn't constant. It was, I could still function normally. I didn't have any pain. There was nothing. So I was just like, I'm fine. I'm not about to take that medicine. And so a year goes by, and I have a little car accident. Like, I'm rushing to the office to do something. Oh, I had a hair appointment.
Still very important.
Yeah, very important. Yeah, but she was coming to the office to braid my hair. So I'm like, I back out of my driveway, and I hit my neighbor's car, like hard, like but it luckily it was an old beat up pickup truck that he had just bought. So I like left all the debris in the street, and I called him or texted him. I was like, that was me that hit your car. And I'm like, but it was such force that I banged my head on the back of my my thing, whatever. Yeah. But again, nothing was happening. But when I got here and she was braiding my hair, I started feeling really nauseous. I was just like dizzy, nauseous, and I was like, you got to stop. I was like, I can't go on anymore. And I like she had started the braids, and so it was my hair looked a mess, but I was like, I gotta go home. So I had to have somebody drive me home. Wow. At that point. And I couldn't, by the time I got out of the car, I was sick, and
so like a concussion. So
well, what was happening is I was having that sparked the MS exacerbation. And I didn't know what that was. Because I forgot I even had MS, so I didn't know what was happening. So I come in the house, and I just kind of go to bed, but vertigo starts hitting me really, really hard. And my husband was going out of the country the next day. Like, this was a trip he had planned. So again, I'm still not knowing what's going on. I'm like, go do that. I'm gonna just be here. My mom can help or whatever. So my mom finally took me to the hospital the next day, and they were like, you're having an MS exacerbation, right? I was like, I am? That's what's happening to me? And so they put me on steroids, got me kind of back to normal, but then they put me on a new drug called Copaxone, which was a daily shot.
Wow.
Which was okay. I'm not averse to needles. Not that I've ever used
Yeah.
but I had to give myself a shot every day in the stomach or somewhere in my fatty tissue, and that was fine. I still I did that. 5 years goes by, and I'm still building. By then, we built Icon. I started doing A&R admin, which is different from assistant. That's now where I got Justin Bieber and Teddy Riley, and so I'm handling albums. Like doing all the behind the scenes, dealing with the lawyers and the managers and the publishing companies and the record labels. So I was just doing that, full steam ahead, and then. The drug company or Kaiser changed my medication to a generic, and I didn't think anything of it. I'm just like, it's
great,
fine.
saving money, right?
Yeah, generic, it's okay. I didn't realize. So basically, within 6 months, I got transverse myelitis, which I never even heard of that.
What is that? Yeah,
it's when you have lesions on your spine.
Wow.
So what happened was, my motor functions just started dwindling, like
really?
I could feel weakness in my arms and weakness in my legs, but I was like, I could just work out, that's just, it's nothing.
Yeah.
But me and him were going on our anniversary trip. It was either Thursday, and my hands just started feeling really numb and tingly and hot, and I was dipping them in ice water,
Wow.
Again, just like, okay, this is going to go away, but it started
Did you know
worse.
it was related to the medicine or no?
I had no idea.
Okay.
I didn't put the two and two together. I was just like, not knowing what was happening. I'm thinking, okay, well, I could go get another steroid drip and get this back to normal again,
Yeah.
And so I went because we were going on Saturday to Mexico, and so I was like, I don't want to feel like this in Mexico. So I went, and my doctor wasn't available, so they gave me I had to pick some random Kaiser doctor, and God was all in it, because I picked this lady, and her name was Dr. Crossing, and she didn't know me from anybody, and she was like, I can't just order an MRI for you. You like I can't order steroids without getting an MRI. And I was like, well, like, when can I get an MRI? Because I want to get the steroid drip so I can go to Mexico and feel good. And she was like, well, I can't get you until like next week sometime. I was like, well,
yeah.
I'm going Saturday. And,
right.
And she was like, well, I would advise you not to go. And I'm like, I'm going
to Mexico. Don't you tell me.
Yeah, I was like, I spent $3,000 on this vacation, so I'm going.
Right.
And she could have been like, took that little sister girl attitude and was like, bye, you know what I mean? Right. Go, but she was so sweet. She was like, hold on. She was like, let me see what I can do. So she got me a MRI at it was a Friday night, 10 o'clock.
Wow.
I didn't even know.
I didn't even know they did it.
Yeah. So I had a brain MRI at 10 o'clock Friday night and a spine on Saturday morning at 8. And my flight left at 7 p.m. to go to Mexico. And so the brain went fine. That came back normal. But then my spine, I didn't even get out of the room, and she's blowing up my phone. And Stone has the phone in the waiting room. Yeah. And he normally wouldn't answer my phone, but it kept ringing. And so finally, I don't even know if she said hi. He answered, and she was like, do not go to Mexico. Tell your wife she needs to go to Northside Hospital right now. She's got transverse myelitis, and she's going to be paralyzed from the neck down in Mexico.
Oh, my gosh.
And so Stone is like, okay, we're not going, so they're wheeling me out. I'm gotta go to go to Northside, and they admit me, and I'm hooked up to machines, and they're like, okay. And luckily, Dr. Crossing, who didn't know me, she ordered something, and I feel like it was God. She ordered something called a blood plasmapheresis. Okay. And it's because basically what was happening was my antigens in my plasma were attacking my body and causing like everything to go numb. So like I started becoming numb from the neck down, just like she said.
And you would have been paralyzed in Mexico.
Oh my, how horrific would that have been?
Oh my gosh, that's scary.
Yeah. So they ended up, it was a 12-day process where they had to, every other day, they had to take my blood out and take my plasma out and then replace it with donor plasma. Wow. And so that pretty much calmed everything down in my body. But like I had to have a big stent in my neck, where they were taking my blood out. It was just the whole thing.
And what year was this? When was
that? That
this?
was 2016.
Okay.
Yeah,
wow.
2016.
Okay.
And so I bounced back from that, but I was left with neuropathy in my hands.
Okay.
Horrific neuropathy in my hands, like burning. They felt like they were on fire, and I had 1,000 rubber bands tied around them.
Wow.
So whereas my body came back to normal, now my hands were useless. I couldn't. I quit everything, because that was the beginning of the Tasha 2.0 journey.
Yeah.
Because when I was laying in that hospital bed, nothing mattered. I didn't care about the studio. I didn't care about anything, money, clothes, nails, hair. I didn't care about. All I cared about was feeling good. All I cared about was, can I walk? Am I gonna get through this? So that's where I started looking at life a little bit differently. But I still had Tasha, energy, Tasha 1.0 energy, all running through.
Yeah.
I still hadn't really got that it was all about love and all that stuff. So I was depressed for like a year. I was at home crying, he was running the studio at that point. I wasn't even present. There was one client that I had still, and he was in LA. So he couldn't see what was happening with me. And I was literally in my hospital bed, taking conference calls, for him.
Wow.
Still thinking, I don't want anybody to know what I'm going through, because it was humiliating. I had pride. I didn't want people to know that couldn't hardly walk. And, I didn't want anybody to know what I was going through. So when I got home, I was suicidal, really.
Wow.
I remember sitting in my office at home looking at my pool, I could just go in there and never come out. I could just, this quality of life was just not anything that
always in pain.
Yeah.
Not knowing what the future holds. Yeah.
Right. So I started doing research, and I heard about stem cells. And I told him, by then I was like, I don't care who knows. I was like, this procedure costs $20,000. I don't have it. We don't have it. And so put a crowdfunding, go do a GoFundMe and just send it out to all the industry people my ex-clients, anybody, and I didn't care at that point, because I was like, I don't care.
It's your life.
Yeah.
You got to save your life.
Yeah. So he did that. And within a week I had it. I had $20,000 to go get that procedure.
Well, that just tells you the impact you've had on their life, that they felt they need to save yours.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So that happened, and that...
See, now I'm about to cry, y'all. Well, that's amazing, because it just shows who you are as a human being.
Yeah.
Because somebody asked me for $20,000, I'm like, no.
Yeah.
But, it tells you've moved the needle for them.
Right.
And they
showed up for me.
They weren't going to leave you in a place of suffering.
And they didn't. They were sending money. I got it, got the procedure. It pretty much took the pain from a 12, which I considered off the charts, to a 5. It took the burning and the tight rubber band away.
Yeah.
So it left me with just more a extreme discomfort, but they were usable at that point.
Okay.
And so I was like, okay, what can I do? I still wasn't ready to jump back into the industry, but I was like, okay, I can walk. I'm very grateful that I can walk. And so I was like, I saw something on Nextdoor. They were looking for part-time dog walkers. So since I love dogs, I was like, you know what? Let me just do this. Dogs are therapy for me. They have the best energy. So let me just throw myself into dog walking. So I signed up to be a part-time dog walker, but I loved it so much. I started doing it full-time. So I was 8 o'clock in the morning to 5 o'clock at night. I was walking people's dogs, and I had my headphones, and, I was walking 5 hours a day.
No stress. I love it.
So, when you go in the houses of these people and their dogs run to you with all that beautiful, unconditional, loving energy, and so happy, to see you wagging their tails. So I just threw myself into that and did that for 2 years. And along that path, I met some, I call them my earth angels, two incredible ladies that were my dog walking clients that just fell in love with me. I fell in love with them, and they really kind of changed the trajectory of my life, because I've never seen anybody so unconditionally loving in my life. These two women there are two older white women.
Mm-hmm.
No, neither one of them have kids. They're dog people.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't have kids. I'm a dog person.
Yeah.
But so we connected in that regard, but they just, the way that they just showed up for me and loved me and like gave me gifts and gave my family gifts, you know, and just, I was like, who are you guys? You know what I mean? So they just showed me what it was to just not have any strings attached. Because honestly, I was the type of person that like, I'll do that for you, but
what are you gonna do back?
Right. Yeah. Like you gonna owe me. You know what I mean? I'm gonna need you to fix my sink or something. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like if I loan you this money.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I went through life like that, and so they just showed me a whole different. I was like, you guys are. I don't know where you guys came from, but so my next issue was like I wanted to start Charm Vision. So that started happening while I was in that state. I got the idea and I was like, how can I help people? Because if I didn't have a vision for my life, I don't even know that I would have pushed past and pushed through all of this.
Suicidal and the illnesses.
Yeah.
And,
exactly. So I was like, I had a vision for my life and that wasn't it. Like that whole situation was not it. So I was like, how can I help other people, you know, get through that? So I started Charm Visions, and that's when I decided, you know, I had a problem with bleeding, you know, and so I was like, you know what, let me just get a hysterectomy. Let me just go in, and because it was bad. Like I didn't know when I was ever gonna like be off of my period.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And so I was like, this is not a quality of life either between my periods, my hands. So I was like, let me at least I could do something about that.
Yeah.
And so of course, went in, they cut my aorta. I almost died and ended up on a ventilator. Gosh. You know, so that's what happened when I started that business, you know.
Oh my gosh.
And so that was probably the most life-changing moment for me because I literally like was out of here. You know what I mean? Like if it wasn't for my family, my husband.
So how do they cut your aorta when you're doing a hysterectomy? How does that happen?
I don't know. Because
that is so, because it's like, wow, that's.
Yeah, I guess your aorta runs through, you know, you have it, I don't know, but I did look it up and there is your aorta kind of runs down there. So like, I think soon as she went in, she cut it. And then like I just bled out, you know, 3 times. And and I do have to give her, because she did that and she could have let me die. She could have just been like, oh, like I better just be, you know, because you signed those papers and, you know, she could have just been like, oh, you know, she didn't survive, you know. And I don't even know if my family would have done autopsy or suspected or anything, you know. But she ran out and luckily there was 2 surgeons that they were prepping for another surgery but nobody was dying. So she ran and got them and they rushed in and they you know did whatever they needed to do. They ended up taking my gallbladder and my appendix in the process. My bowels got severed. So they had to stitch my bowels up and so it was just a whole thing. So again, I ended up on a ventilator and I woke up like 2 days later, you know, I'm thinking I'm gonna go home. I'm thinking I'm gonna wake up and
that was a few hours and now you're good. You're gonna go home
I was
now.
supposed to go home that day, that same day. Like my friend was there to pick me up. And so 2 days later, I wake up with this ventilator down my throat. And at that time, nobody was in the room. Like when I finally came to,
oh my gosh,
like,
how scary is that?
I just woke up in a box. And I tell you, like, perception is everything because all kind of childhood traumas came back because I was an incubator baby. Like I was born and put into an incubator, sick, jaundice, pneumonia, all of that, you know, was happening at the time of my birth. And so when I wake up from this situation, all I see is a box. I think I'm in an incubator. You know what I mean? I'm like, where am I? Like, to this day, I can visualize what I saw, but I was actually in a normal room. But in my brain, I was in a enclosed like
Wow.
incubator type thing. And I was like seeing people through a glass walking by, and I'm like yelling like, help, I can't breathe, like help me. And it's like nobody's paying attention to me.
Wow.
Nobody's there. And I'm like trying to move the thing out, and finally like go out of consciousness again, you know. And the next time I wake up, you know, I can sense that, you know, Stone is there. I can hear, you know, people. And I'm still thinking, I still don't know what happened to me at that point. And it wasn't until I started coming around and they're like, yeah, your aorta was cut and blah, blah, blah. And so I'm just like, why me? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like I've been through enough. Okay.
Right. You know? So, but immediately I caught myself and I was like, you know what? I'm not going to be a victim this time.
That's right.
You know, I'm going to like be positive. And I don't know, Stone knew my journey. I was on this whole positive, you know, energy and all this stuff. So he knew I was like, do not let any negative energy in here. I said, anybody, I don't want no sad, crying, tears. Like, and so he was very vigilant about making sure people were not thinking sad thoughts, were thinking positive thoughts. He was showing the nurses like videos of me healthy and like, this is who she is. She's not that person that you see in the bed. She's that person, so that they can get a vision of what I was like what Tasha was like. And so that was very helpful for the nursing staff. And he was, you know, at one point I was like, do not let my mom in here. I was like, cause she's going to cry and she's going to be all sad. And that's going to, I literally said that will kill me. I was like, I sensed, because I did sense dark energy, and I was like, something was trying to get me. And I was like, I had to make sure that I didn't go down that dark path or that sad, depressed, suicidal path again. So I was like, this time I'm just going to stay positive. I'm not going to be a victim. I'm going to get through this. Even though I was having the MS hug, I was in pain. I had this gash. My whole stomach was open. You know what I mean? I was just in excruciating pain. I had a gut infection that I didn't even know I had at the time. So, I had to go get through all of that. And I was in the hospital for like 22 days, you know, recovering from all that. And when I got home, I still had to have a PICC line in my arm for a month where Stone had to administer 2 different antibiotics through the PICC line. He had to change my wound. I had 20 medications, you know what I mean? So he was navigating all of that, but I did have my sisters took turns flying out one at a time for a week at a time. And then the ladies that I was telling you about, one of them was spending the night in the hospital with me, and she was putting her dogs in daycare, paying money to come to the hospital and spend the night with me. And she was bringing cupcakes and cookies to all the staff so they would treat me better. And she was just on it. She was just on everything. She was like making sure. She was like, nope, you gave her that medication already. I don't think you're supposed to give her that. You know what I mean? So she was just like my little guardian angel. She was, you know, in the middle of the night, he needed help going to the bathroom. So she was like, it's sleeping in that uncomfortable chair. You know what I mean? And she was getting up with me. But I'm just like, I was like, would I do this for somebody?
Yeah.
I was like looking at that and I was like, this lady just loves me so much and is sacrificing herself and she's spending her own money, you know, to be here with me. You know what I mean? Right. And that opened my eyes.
And she didn't need to.
She didn't need to.
Right.
And she wasn't even my family. You know what I mean? Like my family was, you know, he was in a knee brace because he had just had knee surgery, and then I had my dog at home, so I didn't, you know, I needed him to be there with her. So, you know, so she volunteered. She's like, I'll be there with her. I'll spend the night with her. You go home, take care of the dog, and take care of your knee. So she was doing that, and then my other client, the other lady, she bought me a hyperbaric oxygen chamber to put at my house. You know, like this is $20,000 gift, you know. Wow. But that helped me recover really quickly,
especially with the wounds.
So and I still use that, you know, to this day. And she paid for another stem cell treatment for me, like just $3,000. Like, here you go. You know what I mean? So these are people just showed up in my life to help me. So that stem cell treatment even helped more. You know what I mean? So I just had all this love just surrounding me, and I was like, this is what unconditional love looks like. And for the first time in our whole relationship, I looked at him through a different set of goggles. I was just like, you know what? Like, like this man, like literally, like if it wasn't for him, because he was he knew me, you know, he was playing, you know, certain frequencies in my ear, and he was playing ocean waves, and he was like, I know your blood pressure goes down when I play the ocean waves, and he knew the exact, you know, numbers, and you know, he was playing, he knows certain songs that I like, so he was playing that in my ear, so all of that was helping bringing me, you know, back, you know, to life. So again, I realized then, you know, the things that matter most in life, you know what I mean, were the people, you know, that are in your life and how you treat them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the relationships you've cultivated.
The relationships that you've cultivated. And really everything that I've got is through relationships.
Yes.
You know, cultivating relationships and building upon the relationships, you know, that I had. So it's been a amazing journey, and I actually wouldn't trade it for anything. But what I would like to say, now that I know what I know, I brought all of this on myself.
So wait, before you go on to that, when was all, because that was all fairly recent, right?
Yes, the aorta cut was 2 years ago.
Yeah, because that was fairly recent. We knew each other then.
Yeah.
Because I remember I hear something, I'm like, no, that didn't happen.
Yeah.
Like, that's not a real thing.
You're right.
Right? Like that was not a real, I was like, is that, no, that can't be. I had such a hard time wrapping my head around it, because I see you as this very strong, very vibrant woman, and I'm like, there's no way. Like, no, she's not. But yeah, so okay, so tell me. So
what I would like other aspiring entrepreneurs to know, especially women, like, I lived my life in such a way to what I call not get got. That was my whole. That was just my life, like since I was born, and you know, in that situation, and it all goes back to childhood wounds, and you got to heal those things.
Yes.
You know, my childhood wounds were like, you know, I was angry. I was an angry child because I was in this incubator. I didn't get love. You know, I didn't get human touch, you know, for a month. So that just really set me on this whole path of don't touch me. You know what I mean? I'm not, I don't need, don't. My mom was like, you didn't want me to tug you. You didn't want, you were that baby that was just like, no.
Leave me alone.
Leave me alone. You know what I mean? But that's because the first part of my life, I'm in an incubator struggling on my own by myself, kicking, crying, screaming. Nobody's there. Right, you know, so I'm having to survive, you know, on my own. That's how I was introduced into the world. You know,
immediate avoidant attachment.
Correct. And so that was my life. And so I went through life like, you're not going to get me. I'm going to get you before you get me. I'm going to break up with you before you break up with me.
Yeah, you're not going to hurt me.
Yeah. So I'm like, I had my heart broke one time in high school, and I'm like, never again. That's just not going to be me. That's not my life. I'm not going to do that. So whenever I felt myself getting close to somebody, I would just find a way to break up with them, or like if they did something that I did not like, or I thought that wasn't good, that's not going to be good, like I would break up with them just to avoid getting hurt. You know, so that was kind of my life. And then I carried that into my business. It was like, you know, I'm not going to get got by this person, you know, so I just kind of lived my life in this real feisty, like you're not going to get over on me, you know what I mean? But my own body got me. I got by myself because of the energy that I was putting into the world. I was telling the universe, I was putting that energy out. Don't get got. So it's like, well, that's the energy that she likes. She likes to get got. You know what I mean? So that's what she's focused on. She's so focused on not getting got that, you know, all the stress. I used to pride myself on being stressed. I used to be like, girl, I'm so stressed. You know what I mean? And I think
like it's a trophy. It's a badge of honor.
Yeah. And what's managing stress? Who wants to manage stress?
Right.
You
Bring
know
it
what
on.
I mean? Yeah. But I was like, bring it on. More clients, more this. I could stay up till 3 o'clock in the morning. You know what I mean? I could
sleep. Right.
Yeah, I could do all that. But I didn't realize that I was damaging myself on a cellular level. Like I was bringing all this negativity, you know, into my own body. And so when that autoimmunity, you know, hit me, you know, I was like, I had to realize that though. Like I had to realize how I played a role in bringing that situation, you know, into my life. Yeah. And so, but again, I'm still chugging along, not really understanding. And it wasn't until this last situation, and I really feel like it was, my lesson was learning unconditional love, because I didn't get that at birth. didn't know what it was. I didn't know the concept. I heard of it, but I was like, what is that? Because I have conditions.
Yeah,
like,
right.
If you cheat on me, that's a condition that I'm
right.
not gonna love you through. I'm so sorry. You know what I mean? Like that's just not who I can't, you know, so I really didn't think I was capable of giving anybody unconditional love because I never saw that or didn't know that. I didn't know that emotion. And so when that last situation happened to me, I think that was my soul's plan. Like she got to learn that. She got to get this whole unconditional love thing, because that's what this whole world is all about, is learning unconditional love and how to be that and give that to other people. And so that experience is what showed me what that was, and showed me, okay, that's what it looks like. That's what unconditional love looks like showing up for people, being there for people, and not having a condition, on whether you love them or not. You just love them. You don't have to accept.
You don't have to accept behaviors, but
you can
love an individual.
You can love an individual, because what I've found is everybody has a story, everybody has a journey, and if somebody hurts you, they're doing it because they were hurt. And I understood that better now. I understood that, everybody has their own bag of traumas, that they have to work through. And so these people, they're not intentionally, so the things that I held against my husband, I lived with resentment towards him for the majority of the beginning of our marriage. And I didn't realize I was hurting myself. I'm thinking I'm hurting him.
Body keeps the score.
Yes,
right? When you have hatred and toxicity inside of you and stress, your body keeps the score.
Yeah.
And so your body is telling you, is breaking you down.
And that's what was happening to me. And I was very conditional with him. I was like, you need to do this. You need to be this. You need to do this for me. Why don't you do this? Like, so-and-so does that. You know what I mean? Why? So I have all these conditions, and he never made me feel that way. Yeah. I never felt that there was a condition, that I never felt that way, but I couldn't connect the dots. I just couldn't figure out, like I was like, he needs to be this, like he needs to do this better. Like, this is what a man's job is supposed to be. You know what I mean? So I had all these
kudos
ideals
to him for loving you through that. Because one of the hardest things to do is love somebody who has that avoidant attachment, because you're forcing love where love doesn't want to grow. Right? Like you're trying to plant flowers in concrete, right?
Correct. And that's exactly.
And avoidant people will constantly find reasons to not reciprocate that love, and they're going to constantly throw things at you, and it's one of the most challenging things you can do is love somebody who has that avoidant attachment style, because they're looking for things that says you're not good enough, you can't do this good enough, I don't want to be part of this because of XYZ. Right. But kudos to Stone, who I think is one of the most patient men on this earth.
No, he really,
he's really a good dude.
He really did stick. He saw something in me that I didn't even see in myself. Yeah, that's what I attribute to him. Like he
knew who you were really. Right, your facade is what you wanted everybody else to see. Right, but he saw your soul. Right, and I think that was the connection between the two of you.
And what he did, he loved me more than I loved myself. Like, I thought I loved myself. Yeah. And I did. I said I love myself. I get my hair done. I get my nails done. I dress cute. So
can't match pinks, but you dress cute. Right.
But that's how I attributed loving myself. But what that is so like the opposite. Of loving yourself. Like, how is loving yourself putting glue on your eyelashes that hurts your eyes? You know what I mean? Like toxic glue to look cute. And how is putting fake nails on that you have to put under a UV light and, and sometimes burns when it's under there? How is that loving myself? You know what I mean? How is getting perms in my hair and putting those chemicals on my hair, how is that actually loving? I'm actually killing myself. You know what I mean?
For other people.
Right. For other people. And I had to be like, what am I doing? Like I'm doing the opposite of loving myself. I'm not emotionally, I'm damaging myself. I'm holding unforgiveness. I'm holding resentment. You know what I mean? So I'm damaging myself, but I'm thinking I'm loving myself by standing up for myself. You know what I mean? Like I'm strong. You're not going to treat me like that.
I'm independent. I'm strong.
Yeah. I don't need you. You know what I mean? You want a divorce? Fine. Like no. In fact, I want a divorce. Like, in fact, he never threw out the divorce word. I've thrown out the divorce word 3 times. You know what I mean? Just in my pride and my, thinking I could do it all by myself. I don't need you. Right. You know, I'm a strong woman, and and I would have been somewhere sitting on the corner crying, like, like if he would have took me up on my, like, and said, okay, fine, we'll get a divorce. At that point, I was like, go. I'm gonna keep the house. Like, you're gonna have to go find some place to live, because I'm gonna keep the house. So I had all that energy, going towards him. So people would be like, how do you deal with her? How do you stay with her? You know what I mean? And I guess there were some advantages. I don't know. But, like I said, he saw in me what I didn't even see in myself. So thank God, for that. But I had to learn all of those things to get where I am today. And where I am today is focusing on my health first and foremost. Absolutely. Like, that is it. Like, I joined that Windy Hill Athletic Club, that real bougie gym. Yeah. You know what I mean? So I'm there. I work out at home. I'm continuing to walk my dogs, but that is like my focus is like, to stay and remain healthy and to move into more conscious awareness space. Like, I want and it's so funny because Cliff is having something come up, like it's a conscious business something. There's a guy that's going to talk about conscious business, and I want to go to that because I want to hear what he's talking about. But what that is, I still love Icon, and I appreciate Icon, and I still like helping people, but I want my legacy to be more than helping musicians. Yes. Put out particular music that I'm not so fond of. Right. You know what I mean?
Especially, the stuff that's out there and you're like, it's demeaning. It's demoralizing.
Yeah. Like, I don't necessarily want to be known that I helped put that in the marketplace. Sure. Because when I got into the business, I was doing records that were, love records or fun records or things, but nowadays it's more the industry's changed, the climate has changed, so the type of music that's being put out now is not necessarily ones that I want to necessarily push and promote. Like, I can provide this space and that kind of thing, but I really wanted to put a business in the marketplace that helps people in a more conscious space. So with intention, purpose, something that I know can change people's lives for the better.
100%. Yeah. Well, and I think you're doing an amazing job, because every time I'm around you, I feel so much love and so much just appreciation for you, because you just carry such a good positive energy. Thank you. So, I mean, you're my favorite people to see when I go into, our group meetings, because you guys just have this radiance about you, and it makes me gravitate towards you.
Well, that was the intention. The intention was, how can I give back? You know, now that I know what I know and been through what I've been through, and understand, from a higher consciousness that we are all here, just to, serve others and to, love each other unconditionally. And, I realized I was very judgmental, and that's because I judged myself. I was judgmental towards myself. And so I was judging others. Like, I would look at myself in the mirror and be like, girl, no, Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, and so I'd see other girls and be like, girl, no, why you got that on? You know what I mean? Like, you don't need to be wearing that outfit. But I'm like, who cares? That's if they're happy with that outfit, that's not who am I to judge another person's outfit, hair, anything, you know what I mean? But I was judging myself. That I was looking through life through those goggles. And if you can't love yourself, you won't love others. And if you judge yourself, you're going to judge others. So it's like, now I understand, none of that is healthy, you know, for me. It's not serving me in any way. You know what I mean? Like, it's actually causing me to go backwards, you know, on my journey. So I had to like really do some deep spiritual diving, to get to the place where it's like, it's all love. Like it doesn't behoove you to be negative. Negative energy is going to destroy you. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And even in those dark days when I was in the hospital, this last time, I didn't cry one time.
Wow.
Like I was like, I'm not, because all that's going to do is bring more sad energy. And I knew that by then. I knew that. So because I knew how the laws of the universe, and I know law of attraction, and I understand all that now. And I was like, nope. Can't know. I said, I want everybody to visualize me happy and healthy. That's the prayer. Like, I don't pray no sad prayers. Don't come in here crying. Talking about, oh, my baby, she's gonna die. I don't want that energy. You know what I mean? Just happy energy, positive energy. Put that towards me. And I think that's how I healed, as quickly as I did.
Absolutely.
Because I didn't give in to any of that negativity.
And I think that's so important too, because I used to be the same way. I used to be more judgmental, but it was when I was the unhappiest with myself.
Right.
Like when I was the unhappiest with myself is when I was not happy with anything. Right. Nothing was good enough. Nobody else was good enough because I wasn't good enough. I didn't feel like I was good enough. And so, by judging myself so harshly, it felt like it was, very reasonable to judge everybody else. And so
you felt entitled.
I felt entitled to judge everyone else because you know what? I'm judging myself too. So, but you're not entitled. And so like, the self-talk that you have, what you tell yourself matters so much. I get angry when I hear people that I love and care about talk about that they're not good enough. That sometimes my mom will be, she's my office manager, and sometimes she say, I'm so stupid. I'm like, don't ever say that about my mother again.
Oh, I love that. I love that.
So you better watch that. I
love
defend her. And so, and then even like, a couple weeks ago, we were sitting in a meeting and we were having to rate our own businesses, and you rated yours low. And I was like, don't you dare ever talk about that company in that way. That couple that owns that studio is fucking amazing. And don't you say that. So, but I think that's part of it too, is that self-talk. It's that we're not doing enough.
What are you telling yourself? That's
so,
very important. Like, what do you tell yourself?
And I've had to turn it around because during the pandemic, when everybody is like, what's happening with the world? Is this whole thing going to implode? Like, what's going on? My business had to shut down for 5 months. How do I get through this? And, meanwhile, like, time was a vacuum, right? There was no wake up time. There was no go to bed time. It was just time existed in a vacuum. You had no idea. Is it morning? Is it night? Is it
Can
Tuesday?
I go outside? Is it safe to go outside? Did you ever get COVID?
Actually, I had it twice. Yeah.
So I think we had it. I think I had it twice, but they weren't. It wasn't bad.
It wasn't terrible. But it sucked. But it was like the flu. And but then I started. I was watching a lot of like crime shows because again, that criminal psychology degree. So so that's what I was interested in. Well, all this negativity, all this crime and murder and rape, and like I'm just gonna throw all this at me when I'm already in a really fragile state.
You were just inviting fear.
I was inviting
like that. I went to bed to forensic files, like New Detectives.
Same here.
I loved that stuff. But I was programming.
It was the last thing I was listening to.
I
would set my TV timer and I'd fall right asleep to it. And your brain is the most receptive right in that time, right before you go to sleep and right when you wake up. That's when the brain waves, that's when the state is most vulnerable. And that's what I'm listening to.
Me too.
This fear, this crime, this horrible negative
energy.
Then
you wake up and wonder why you look at the world so negatively,
Why I feel like everybody's out to get me. Why I'm looking people up and down at the grocery store, like, I definitely know you're trouble. So, but at the same time, I'm also at a state of like, okay, I need to make a change. Like at least I was aware, I was self-aware enough to like make a change. And so I started listening to meditations. So I listen to affirmations. So I use Insight Timer. Yeah. And I've turned so many people onto this. They need to actually give me a sponsorship, damn it. So Insight Timer, call me. But yeah, so
I haven't heard of Insight Timer.
Insight Timer. So it's a free app, and so you can set different meditations. And so I will listen to affirmations before I go to bed. Right. And so usually it's like love, prosperity, wealth, whatever, health, good health. And so I'll listen to affirmations, and it will go on for a certain amount of time. I can set it, it could be a 10-minute timer, it could be a 20-minute, it could be a 40-minute. Last night I listened to one for 2 hours. I was like, I need extra positivity in my life. So for 2 hours, those affirmations played while I was asleep.
No, it's awesome. And that and he'll tell you too. I do the same thing. There's a guy named Brian Scott that I love. I love his channel, and he has the most amazing. Have you ever heard of Neville Goddard? Mm-mm. Okay, well, we'll talk offline. But yeah, okay. So he just has he reads the books and reads old lectures from these people that were in this space way back then, and they really had a good handle on spirituality. Yeah. And they tie the Bible into it a lot. You know what I mean? Yeah. Also, which is good, but I kind of veered away from a lot of the traditional Bible kind of stuff, and I still love a lot of the stuff that is in the Bible that teaches, but I'm learning it from a different aspect now, and what I thought it meant, it kind of didn't mean that, and so I'm starting to really appreciate a lot of what I was brought up hearing, but I was like, okay, that's not actually what that meant. You know what I mean? There's some things that are trying to be hidden from us because they don't want us to know how powerful we are as creators. Like we have the power to create our own reality. Have incredible power. Yeah. And they don't want you to know that through your thoughts and emotions and your feelings, you can change, your circumstances, and you can change your reality. And that's powerful. And that's a gift that God gave each and every person, because we are from God, and he's a creator. Well, not he, but that energy, because God is not a he or a she. Correct. That energy is a creative energy. And so we were birthed from that. And so that same energy is running through us. So we have the power to create our reality as well. So that's what was being hidden from us. Some of the books that were taken out of the Bible, some of the things that Jesus talked about, were taken away, so that we wouldn't understand. And, it's now I'm fascinated with this space. I love it. I'm so excited about it. And, that's kind of all I talk about at home.
Well, and it also kind of brings us back to the vision boards. Yeah. So, I'm a big believer in vision boards. In fact,
so this is actually my vision board right here.
Yeah, I want to see it.
So here's Charm Visions. It's 1 million sold.
I love it.
And then I'm going to eventually start a podcast called Powered by Vision. And it's going to be a van. I'm going to go around in a little vision van and interview people. And this is me and Stone. It's happily, healthy. And then we love Gulf Shores. That's our place. So we want a second home in Gulf Shores. So I got that on there. Yes. And then I have a Hummer. I want a EV Hummer. And then a Manifestation, which is a meditation tent that I'm developing. It's really cool. I have to show you. And then Service to Others Path. That is just to that's a lottery win or something. I don't know, but I'm gonna need a lot of money to help on the Service to Others path. But hey, that's kind of my goal. That was my vision board, and I take it with me I treat it like a baby. I'm like, come on, let's go. I put it next to my bed when I go to sleep, and I'm like, come on, let's go. And so I created intention bracelets, which are those so to attract love, attract money, and one is to attract health. And I have one that kind of encompasses all money, health, and love. So I just kind of came up with those just to, help people be intentional about what it is that they're trying to bring into their life.
Well, and it's a good reminder. And, there's sometimes where, like my mom is really spiritual, so she'll give me different crystals, like, hey, carry this crystal when you go to this important meeting.
And she's right. It's like these crystals have magnetic energy.
Yes. And so, I'll carry a crystal with me, or for protection, if I'm going on a flight or I'm going somewhere. But, I believe in vision boards. I believe, what you put out into the universe is what you attract.
Yeah.
And so I try to put very positive things out there.
You actually, you do. You are very receptive to us. We were kind of nervous going into the group because, he will never say that, but I did feel a little bit of imposter syndrome because I'm like, I don't know am I on the same level with everybody in this room? I feel like everybody, in here has these big multi-million-dollar businesses, and I'm like, do we fit in here? You know what I mean? But I was like, yes, I fit in here. You know what I mean? Like So I had to get over, that. But you were always, I would say the one that, made us feel comfortable, made us feel welcome, and made us feel like we belong there. So
well,
really
you guys
that.
were just, you always have that positive spirit and that energy. And it's just, I'm very attracted to that positivity because it makes me want to be
on the cruise with us.
I know. So we're talking about a group that we belong to called Clifco.
Yes.
And Clifco has been just an amazing game changer for me. It's really important that you find your tribe. I tell people this all the time. Find your tribe.
Yes.
If you want to be successful, find your tribe, because the people you surround yourself with are who you are going to be most like, right? And so if you're constantly surrounding yourself with, I went to high school with these guys and they're all a bunch of losers now and they're on drugs and you're trying to always bail them out and you're like the one successful person, you won't be successful for long.
Very long. Exactly.
Yeah. So, if you want to elevate your status in life, you elevate the people you surround yourself with.
Correct.
And so I joined Clifco, and when I first joined, I was very much the imposter syndrome person. The first time I ever met Cliff, it was because I was going to visit somebody else. It was so I tell this story and he laughs now, but so I was dealing with some really financial major issues in my company because we were growing, but we were having a hard time collecting from our big clients. And so we were constantly in a cash crunch, right? And so the money would be there, but it was just, we were getting through payroll on a hope and a prayer. This is several years ago. So, but we just couldn't get these big clients to pay us.
Really?
And, and it was just
That's
such a
just
challenge. Yeah, exactly. And so, I was feeling like, okay, I've already drained my IRA. I have no more money. I've run up all of my credit cards. I'm maxed. This next payroll, we're done. We're bankrupt, right? And the frustrating thing is we had the receivables. They just weren't in the bank. And the bank wouldn't give me any more money. And so, for a line of credit. So anyway, so I gone in to talk to a financial advisor at the suggestion of one of my friends. I didn't know this guy. It was her financial advisor. I didn't have enough money to have financial advisor. I was like, that's what you do when you have money. And I had credit card debt. That was the only thing I had. And financial advisors don't want to give you anything. Time when you're just I have $40,000 in credit card debt and
that's what I have.
$67 in savings. Is that gonna, can you help me? So anyway, so I went to talk to this financial advisor, and Cliff was leaving the building as I was coming in, and he's like, "Oh, who are you here to see?" Because it was kind of after hours, 5:30 is when I could get up there, and I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna go talk to Clint, and we're gonna talk about some finances." And he was like, "Do you mind if I sit in?" I was like, "Listen, you, God, me, Cliff, we're gonna solve this together."
But you were already part of Clifco at that point.
No, I had never. This is the first time I ever met Cliff.
Oh,
and so
he just asked to sit in on your meeting.
Yeah, he was like, "Can I sit in on the meeting?" I was like, "Listen, it can't hurt. Literally can't
Some
hurt.
strange man,
some random dude in an elevator. Okay, fine, do it. I don't care.
See,
who else should we bring in? The janitor, the building manager? I mean, I don't really care at this point. I'll take anyone's advice.
Amazing.
So total God thing, serendipity, whatever you want to call it. But he sat in on this meeting, and I just basically threw out my QuickBooks reports, and I was like, "Yeah, it's bad." So he's looking at it, and he's like, "Well, tell me about your contracts. Tell me about your your invoicing methods. Tell me how you do this. How are you following up on these invoices? Are you putting penalties in for late payments?" And I'm like, "Well, no." He's like, "Why?" And I was like, "Because I don't want to lose a client. Because I'm afraid that if I give them a penalty, that they'll go somewhere else." And he was like, you're about to bankrupt your company. And he was like, yeah, you're going to make some tough decisions. So he gave me a little tough love, but steered me in the right direction.
Good.
By the next week, we were okay. We had gotten one of the biggest clients to come through, and hiring an attorney, so anyway, we ended up coming through that. And then,
So was that your rock bottom, or that was your low?
That was rock. Yeah, that was rock bottom right there. And so I was pretty sure. I mean, I had just cashed out my IRA, and I was like, yeah, I literally have no more money, none, zero, I have nothing left. And so anyway, so that was rock bottom. And so the next year I built and was able to get to a point where we finally broke the $1 million mark, which is a huge deal in small businesses, right?
Yes.
And, less than 2% of all, or less than 1% of all women-owned small businesses reach $1 million in revenue.
Congratulations.
So I was like, wow, and so I became like a big believer in like get good counsel.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't matter how many of my friends I would go to, they weren't dealing with what I was dealing with.
Right.
And so
I think
anyway,
we're pretty much at that point in our business too, where we need to pay
good counsel.
For good counsel,
so at that time, I just, I was getting Cliff's newsletters, and so there was something about membership, and I sent a thing in, and I was like, listen, I know I may not be the entrepreneur that you guys have in your group, but I promise to contribute in every way I possibly can. And so he called me, and he remembered me, and he was like, all right, so I definitely, because he said, I saw something in you that I believe that you will be very successful, and that you will do what he said you have an energy. And so he's like, normally I don't extend an invitation, because it's hard to get in the group. You got to get voted onto the island. It's a whole you have to, it's not easy to get into this group. And so, but I promised, I was like, I will contribute in any way that I can. And so I felt like a total imposter. That first day that I went there, I was like, I am in the wrong room. I should be in, is there like a pre-K version of this? I can do like a starter class.
I like that. Yeah, we should go through starter classes.
Can I do like Entrepreneur 101? But but it has been a game changer for me, and I've been blessed to meet people like you.
It's been
have been just an amazing inspiration in my life.
Thank you for joining our guests on the Pretty Powerful podcast. And we hope you've gained new insight and learned from exceptional women. Remember to subscribe or check out this and all episodes on prettypowerfulpodcast.com. Visit us next time, and until then, step into your own power.